Let's talk some toys in here. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today it's the Man-Child. Okay, so today for review, we're going to take a look at the new Masters Universe Origins Cartoon Collection Clawful figure. Warrior with the Grip of Evil. So yeah, we finally get Clawful added to the line. Awesome. He's one of my top 5 favorite villains going back to the vintage collection or the animation. No top 5 or Spike War, Whiplash, Webstore, Scareglow, and Clawful. And they were also the first 5 figures I ever picked up in the Classics line before I went any further. And I gotta say, they did a pretty good job on them, like they are with a lot of these cartoon collection figures. And now, of course, you know, Clawful going back to the animations, a little different than the vintage inspired one. Yeah, the colors obviously all over his body, the head sculpt, the armor, you know, he has the claws, but he's missing that larger claw on the right side, which I kind of liked a little better going back to the vintage figure. But maybe later on, doing some comparisons and mixing and matching the parts, I'll bring the vintage one in, yeah, for comparisons and see if we can mix it around. But aside that, you know, I think Mattel did a pretty good job, and it's exciting to finally get him in hand. And of course, here's a quick look at the art and back of Clawful's packaging. So yeah, we see some of the art taking inspiration from the As Seen on TV episode from the Filmation cartoon called Dree-El's Return. If you're not familiar, Dree-El is a female orca or a female Trollan from Tralla. So yeah, we have Clawful obviously, and then you see Trapjaw in the background. He's blowing at the Horn of Evil, and basically that would emit like this. It was basically an evil artifact. It would emit like this black smoke, and whatever it would come in contact with, whatever was around it, would turn to evil. And we can see the sorcerers trying to fight off the battle going on between the smoke and Clawful and Trapjaw. And I thought that Clawful had a pretty cool voice, and he was pretty strong in that episode. He wasn't like a bumbling fool, you know, like Trapjaw was a lot. Of course, He-Man defeated him, but I like the way they went about his character in that episode, and the few times you've seen him in the Filmation cartoon. And then dropping down to the left-hand side, just shows picture illustrations of Clawful with the Horn of Evil, holding it by his claw, blowing through it. And then he can just twist into powerful battle positions. And then moving over to the cross-sell, these are all 4 figures that's currently out with the cartoon collection. Okay, and before we take a look at Clawful and all his accessories, he comes with this comic called Honor Among Thieves. It's the same exact comic that Spike War came with, so I did show it in my Spike War video. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Anyway, I thought some things that are interesting are they have illustrations here of both Stinkor and Clamchamp. Now, they weren't in the Filmation cartoon, excuse me. But I'm wondering if this is like, these were actual ideas of what they should have looked like if they were going to be in that cartoon at some point, which they probably were to help sell more toys and toy line. That was the whole idea of the Filmation cartoon. Anyway, maybe that's a hint for these figures that come into this cartoon collection somehow down the road. That would be pretty cool. Alright, so let me just move to the comic real quick. And yeah, the comic doesn't really relate to those Filmation episodes that both Spike War and Clawful were in. But, you know, they do have things like the Horn of Evil and kind of see what's going on here. But anyway, it is fun to get a comic added to these figures, even if it doesn't have anything to do with those episodes or not. And here's a complete look around at Clawful and all his accessories at a package. So, taking a closer look at Clawful's head sculpt. Yeah, pretty cool. It's fun for what the cartoon line is doing. It's got, you know, typical big yellow eyes, pupils looking up. I'm not sure, not cross-eyed. No, they look okay. Sculpted open mouth, which I like. Got 2 pairs of teeth, fangs on the top and bottom, you can see. Sculpted and painted white. Even has a tongue sculpted inside the mouth. I think in the Filmation, his nose was more narrow, a little more pointier, but for what this is doing, I guess it works. So look from the side, right? He has that cool fin. You got 3 of them going down the back of the head sculpted. They're painted a little different than the head itself. Let's complete look at the back, right? The other side. And as far as the articulation with this head, look all the way left to right and go all the way down that far, and you can look up as far as you can go up. So moving down to the chest or buck area, of course he comes with this his iconic Filmation style armor, right? You can see it's the front. It's very lightly detailed. It's got a couple plates here, and then everything else is just like a big strap going around both shoulders. It's kind of like a belt all in one as well. And then flipping him around, it's cross-strapped. Then he has like, this is supposed to be a jewel or a gem. It's infused in the armor, right? It's painted blue, obviously. So as far as the articulation with this armor, I mean, you can only spin at the waist. Of course, come apart at the waist. And that's how we're going to remove that. We'll get back to that soon. So moving on to the arms, it's just typical cartoon style aesthetics as far as the arms, legs, the whole body, nothing different. I like this. Yeah, I like this color too they added on them. It's a brighter red than, because in the Filmation is a little bit darker. But yeah, it works for him. As far as the articulation with the arms, everything we've seen before with these cartoon figures, go up, down, forward, back, straighten the elbow out. You can bend about that all the way up that far. Bend the claw, the claw in this case all the way to the face. The other arm is exactly all the same, nothing different. So he has like this little round ring wrist bracer kind of thing. It's really a ring. Exactly the same on both sides. Now they're all part of the sculpt, just painted orange to match this light orange armor. And then, of course, Clawful comes with a pair of his iconic claws. Now, these are the same exact claws that the first release Clawful has, at least on the one side, and Buzz-Off has on both sides. I'm just going to bring him in real quick for comparison. I'll bring him back in later. You can see that he has a mason hand, but it looks like to me it's the same exact claw. Nothing different. And they can spin depending on what position you want them, so you can turn them in and out, or spin them that way and go up and down. And the other claws are all the same. And moving on to the legs and finish our articulation up. So we already talked about the loincloth and belt. Yeah, everything's just blowed, very simplified. Going back to the animation. And as far as the legs, go out all the way out with a split, kick forward, go back, bend at the knee, spin at the knee. The legs are all the same. And then he has these orange boots that match the color of this armor. They can spin. If you want to remove them, you can. And they have a three-toed creature foot, which can go up and down, rock side to side. And these are the same exact boots. Looks like the cartoon merman came with. So once again, taking a look at the armor again. Let's remove it off the body. So it looks like to me to remove it, see them come apart. I guess you got to break them at the waist. And I guess you got to take the arms out. So let me take the arm out on this side. And then the other arm. And then with both arms removed, it looks like you can pull it right off the body like this, I guess. Yeah, okay. All right, you got to pull that whole thing like so and slide it right over, down over the arms and off the waist. And here's a quick look at that armor off the body. Right, so yeah, none of these straps obviously come apart. See how we took it off. It's going to go back on the same way. And of course, here's a quick look at Clawful with the armor removed off the body. Of course, put the other parts back on. So if you want to see what it looks like without it, that's about it. And now, moving forward with Clawful's accessory. So the only thing it comes with is that Horn of Evil, right? It's a really good sculpt, I gotta say, for this accessory for the Origins line. You got the skull, fangs hanging down like that. It's hollow inside. It's pretty soft rubber for the most part. There's no other colors they added to it, but you do get that, and I like the overall design of it anyway. So, of course, taking a look at Clawful once again, put the armor back on. Let's see how he holds this Horn of Evil with the claw. So, I guess we can grab it around here and to the section that's sculpted for weapons. I guess you can hold it like that, and I'm going to try to see if I can bring it up to the face. So, yeah, he holds that horn pretty well in that claw, and, it has enough articulation to push it close to the face and position it in his mouth. Alright, so moving forward once again, doing little comparisons and mixing and matching the parts depending on the figure. So yeah, here's our Origins inspired cartoon collection Clawful against the Super 7 Club Grayskull Classics Clawful. And that's a beautiful figure. It looks, a lot more accurate to the animation, somewhat. I like the colors in this one too. You can see the Horn of Evil difference between this one and what the Origins one comes with. See the head has more of that narrow snout, which is more accurate to the cartoon, where this one's a little wider. The armors pretty much look the same, somewhat. This one looks a little shorter, where this one's longer up to the chest. Of course, the colors are different. And yeah, as far as mixing parts with these two, there's nothing you're really going to mix. The ball pegs are different, these are smaller. And if you move the heads on a lot of these figures, they will snap. These are very dangerous figures to mess around with. They have a lot of QC issues and are brittle in certain areas. Aside that, they do look good. And then spinning them around, you can see the back of them. Now, he also came with this mace, which the vintage inspired one come with something like it, where I didn't see in the cartoon, he never did, but he did come with one. I just tied it to the back of the armor. And you notice too, this one has a row of fins down the back, where he doesn't. Just using the typical He-Man cartoon aesthetic, right? Buck. So yeah, that would have been cool if he came with the same fins. So taking a look at the next comparison, I brought in a vintage-inspired Origins Clawful against our cartoon Clawful. That's those two together. Yeah, it's amazing how much taller this figure is because of the legs over this one. All right, so look at the height. Yeah, aside that, let's see what kind of parts we can mix together between these two. So focusing on a cartoon body, the first thing I did was just put the vintage Clawful head on this body, and I've also put his mace in hand, or claw. I'll check that out. And that looks pretty cool, even though the red, it's a different red. You know, this very iconic head has just different textures in it. Those big eyebrows, which they're not, you know, as kids we used to make fun of him as eyebrows, but they're not. They're supposed to be like catfish whiskers or sea urchin spines or something like that. I remember reading somewhere this whole idea of them. And I like that this Clawful has the sculpted open mouth as well with all the teeth. So let's a quick look at that setup. It articulates really well on his body. So the next thing I did was just remove this armor once again, which is kind of annoying because you got to break the arms and waist apart. And I just put the vintage-inspired Clawful armor on this cartoon body, kept the head on, we got the mace in hand, I just threw the Horn Evil in the other claw. And once again with the same setup, now I just put the cartoon Clawful head on the body with everything exactly the same. Alright, for the next setup, I just put the cartoon legs and hips back on with the boots. Alright, they were already on the legs, obviously. Put the cartoon-inspired armor back on this body, left the cartoon head on, but I did change the vintage-inspired arms to this body. Alright, so we have the larger claw. Now we have these tan arms trying to transition to the red body. Now, I did have this armor on originally, but when you have it on it, you don't see anything. You only see the red neck. So I took it off. I thought it would be more interesting with this armor on. And it's pretty much a quick look at that setup so we get the larger claw. And then, of course, I just threw the vintage Clawful lower legs and boots on this body with the overall setup. So all we're really gaining is the armor, the red cartoon body, and the animation head. And now I also added the cartoon boots to the vintage Clawful legs. Again, we kept everything else the same. And then once again with the same setup, I just threw the vintage head back on because now we have the armor where you can see the red buck with the setup on his body. Okay, so jumping back over to the vintage Clawful, I have his body all put back together. I just put the cartoon armor on his body and the boots. Just kept the head on. And now there's a quick look with that cartoon head on that setup. And now I added the vintage blue boots back onto that body, cartoon head, armor, and just threw the Horn of Evil to the left arm with the claw. Alright, now I just removed the Filmation armor. I put the red arms with the claws back on, so we lose this big claw, because there's no way to change that out. It's kind of like part of this arm with a giant peg. Kept the cartoon head on, and we're sort of back where we started. Like whether we went from the cartoon Clawful or to this one. Side the red claws, because this armor pretty much hides everything, where this one shows the buck for the most part. Well, you can see the neck, you know, it's about it. And then, of course, we can always just, to finish it up, right, just change the legs back out, like so. So, finally, for one last comparison, see what parts we can mix around between these two. So, yeah, once again, we have our cartoon Clawful. It's going to keep the armor off for now. Against our Massiverse New Eternia Clawful, which I really like the design of him. Pretty cool how he executed this figure for the New Eternia line. Now he's a mix of something between, like, I want to say the 2000X Clawful Classics, a little bit of Filmation, at least the armor. So they added the Filmation Spire armor, but much better detail in this. But it's sort of reminiscent of it. And of course, what the Massiverse did. Aside from that, yeah, let's see what parts we can mix together. I mean, the only thing we could try on him really is the head for fun. The armor's not going to fit because you can't break the body. But it'll be interesting to see what parts, as far as the armor pieces, he has 3 different armor pieces, I believe, can mix on this figure. So as far as the Massiverse Clawful, of course, I just put the cartoon head on, and I threw the Horn of Evil and this small claw hand. So a quick look at that setup, right? It's going to leave all the armor and shell on and stuff. That kind of looks cool in its own, yeah, wacky way if you wanted to. And as far as articulation with this head, so let's see. All right, you can go all the way down. You can only go back about that far. Sorry, popped off the ball peg because of this piece of armor, but you can go left to right. You can look forward, and yeah, this claw holds that Horn of Evil pretty cool. And once again, jumping back over to the cartoon Clawful, so you can see I put that Filmation-inspired armor on the body off this Massiverse Clawful, and yeah, this armor is part of his buck. I forgot, so I can't remove that. But anyways, quick look at that setup, and that looks pretty cool on him. It is a little bit loose, but if you tighten the buckles all the way up, and you know they break from the sides if you're not familiar. It's as far as I can tighten him up. And you kind of like push it down his body. Looks pretty good. This oversized mace won't fit in the claw. I mean, you sort of hold it, but he just keeps dropping it out. Yeah, not gonna work. Side that looks pretty cool. Of course, I just left the cartoon head on. Okay, so obviously I removed the cartoon head for now off the body, and I just want to put this large crab shell on. It's like 2000X inspired. And yeah, you got to remove the head to do that. And it will slip over the neck. And you can see this latch in the back. It can work for the shell or this large weapon, which can't use on a figure. So I'm going to do like this. All right, just snap it on the back. And then put the head back on. There you go. Just a quick look at that setup. That looks awesome. Wow. So, yeah, we have the everything off the Masterverse, right? That Filmation-inspired armor on. Oh, I put that armband on, too, off the Masterverse one. And if you had two figures, you could put one on each arm if you wanted to, or this can go on that side. I put the vintage Clawful, obviously, Mason, just that claw. All right, we have the Filmation head on. There's a look at the back with that shell. Oh, this thing just fell out. That looks pretty cool. And it's funny is when you put this armor piece on, it sits down over the neck and actually tightens this, Filmation armor up. So once again, with the same armor setup, and I just put the Masterverse Clawful head on that body, and I put the mace back in the claw on the other side. Just a quick look at that. So, I mean, that could work. It's very serious looking. This head has a lot of couple different shades going on in it that doesn't match the overall body. But again, it is MOTU. You can make it work. So it does mix between the shell and the overall red colors on the body and stuff like that. And as far as the articulation, this strap gets in the way a little bit. You can look, let's see, left, right. You can't go down much about it and look back. But if you like that setup with this Clawful. So once again, with the same setup, I just put the vintage Clawful head on that body. If you like that head with the overall setup with the armor, of course, I left the Mason hand. Quick look at that setup. And how does this head now move with the armor? Yeah, see, it's this piece with this crab shell. It gets in the way. Okay, there you go. All right, left to right. Down and back. So the next thing I wanted to try was putting the vintage Clawful armor once again back on this cartoon Clawful. Just going to keep the cartoon head on for now. We already know what these two look like. And I wanted to see if this Masterverse Filmation armor would fit over this armor. It does. Very similar, just sort of how it like fits on the armor over this Masterverse Clawful. Again, his armor is part of the buck, so we can't take it off and try it like we can the vintage one. So that looks pretty cool. It's a different setup for this Clawful. And now, of course, I put that 2000X inspired crab shell on the back with the same setup. Just a quick look at that. Pretty cool. So we have, the vintage armor on, Filmation inspired Masterverse armor over the vintage armor, and that crab shell, and then the cartoon head. And then the last thing I want to do with the same exact setup is just put the vintage blue Clawful boots on these legs, just to mix some more blues around between the loincloth, the belt, these big bone pieces sticking off the back, the jewel, stuff like that. Of course, I put the Horn of Evil in the other claw. And just a quick look at that setup. That's about it. It's a pretty neat looking Clawful now with everything, with all those parts. And again, we want to put this head on or this one. I like the cartoon head on this body. I think it fits better. All right, and that's about it. That's my review on the new Mattel Universe Origins Cartoon Collection Clawful figure. Yeah, it's, I guess, sort of what I expected for a Clawful in the cartoon line. Does what he has to do. At least with the cartoon lines doing to certain figures. Yeah, the colors are pretty neat. I think they could have been a little darker, somewhat like the animation. I do like the head sculpt. It's fun. Again, I wish the nose was a little more pointier, or more narrow, like the classics, something like that. I really like this Horn of Evil. It has really cool detail. And it would have been cool if he come with another weapon. Not that I've ever seen one in the animation. A few times I've seen them. At least throwing a mace or something similar to like they did with the vintage Clawful or even a Masterverse. But I think one of the coolest parts is he mixes well with these two guys, at least with like the head, especially, of course, the vintage head, vice versa, and the armor pieces. Whether you want to put this armor, this figure, that one on, the Masterverse, everything I tried, it was really fun. Would have been cool if there was a way to adapt this large claw to this arm. There's really not, because it's large. Again, it's doing its own thing, and the Masterverse one is the same way, like on a giant peg. And yeah, I guess unless you're going to do some serious customization, maybe there's a way, but for the most part, you just got to stick with the two smaller claws. Like he comes with, to be fair, it's what he always had in the cartoon, so that's what they're doing, and it works. Besides that, it's fun to see him in the cartoon collection. So as always, I appreciate everybody watching. Until next time, take care.